So, welcome to the Partners Podcast. I'm here joined today by Moses and Matty, who actually run a
Hey.
few real estate marketing companies and platforms. And I would love for them to dive a little bit deeper into it as we progress with the podcast. My name is Brendan Shu. I'm the founder of ACRE Partner, and I'm excited to kick this one podcast off because I know Matty and Moses are up to a lot of things, and I think a lot of our audience will benefit from what they're working on. So let's start off with like the big overview, Matty, on all the things that you guys have your hands in, because it's not just the real estate photography company.
Yeah, so our company is called North 7th, and we do connected real estate services. So we started as strictly a media business for real estate, but we quickly started dabbling in other things that have grown into multiple services. So we have the media business, and then we do sign placement. We do MLS data entry. We also have a transaction coordination business. And then most recently, we've actually started getting into software development, and our most recent product is a software product for real estate photographers to find editors, which we've seen to be a really difficult problem within our own business, trying to find people for last minute edits or for specialty editing like virtual staging or object removal. So we built tools to make that super easy and to find a quality and trusted editor. And we've got people from close to 25 countries all around the world now in our platform. So that's just the top level view of what we're doing in North 7th.
Awesome. And how did you and Moses get started in all this? I guess from Moses's perspective, how'd you guys become business partners?
We've known each other for a long time. So we met in high school. We kind of parted ways after that and didn't have a whole lot of contact until Matty came back from New York. So he was a director up in New York for a good while, and then came back to Greenville just a little bit before COVID hit. So he kind of got marooned in Greenville. About the same time I was working on selling, I'd been a broker in Greenville for a long time. So I've been working on selling that brokerage and got to talking with him about things we could do to kind of revitalize different spaces of real estate, and got to talking about creating a media company to serve the upstate of South Carolina with connected services in a way that really no company in this area had ever done before.
Awesome. And it's so much more than just your core business. North 7th is so much more than just real estate, media, photography, and video. How'd you like start adding on all of these other services? And I guess how has it gone? Has it been worth it? Like, do you have a lot of adoption from your clients?
Yeah. So we started with that vision. So neither of us were coming from being like long-term real estate photographers. We were starting this out of different industries. And coming from the real estate space, I was seeing a lot of need for the connected services components, and coming from more of a gig working space in New York, Matty was seeing a lot of connections as to how we could deploy that with contractors and employees in the upstate. So putting that together, we kind of started with connecting services, and we're trying to prove a concept essentially that by connecting the services, they naturally cross-sell themselves, which is proven pretty strong and pretty good in terms of like we've captured all but about 10% of market share. Like we touch about 10% of transactions in our area at this point, and we're right at 2 years in.
Awesome. So starting like another service like signpost or transaction coordinating, it's like a whole nother business, right?
Definitely elements of it.
Did you find someone to partner with? Like, how did you find some, like, did you guys have to learn like the industry in and out and do it yourself? Like, or did you find someone that you could trust that had experience? Like, how did you go about adding these additional services? Because for me, just partnering with establishing companies was hard, like has been hard enough. I think I've tried partnering with a few signpost company, a few staging companies, and their systems are so all over like different that it's been very hard. So I love to learn like what was the process on like from conceptualizing the connected service to actually being able to provide it, and now tying it all back into your ecosystem.
Matty, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So everything we do at this stage is in-house, but we actually did partner with another company for the TCs. We actually did an acqui-hire of an existing single person contract. They were doing transaction coordination, and she became part of our team. So now Carissa is leading the front on the transaction coordination side. But when it comes to like signs,
well, we thought about it on that one. Like we actually approached a sign company that there weren't many in our area. There's one like struggling one. When we thought about doing something similar with them and purchasing or otherwise acquiring their business, and kind of decided as Matty was kind of working through it that we really didn't need or want to do that. And Matty's a bit of a guru in designing, I don't know, what would you call it? Systems, methodologies for how to, make something run.
I like systems. Yeah.
Yeah. So Matty took that after we were like, we're a pass on this business, because it was basically just going to be by a minimal client list. And Matty started designing how we could warehouse and deploy the different signs within our existing workforce, I guess.
Yeah. So one of the things that we did early on, even when we were considering existing businesses, a lot of the ways that people do signposts here is they have the big 4x4 posts and they construct them really pretty inexpensively, and they can have a bunch of them. And then they paint them, but they're huge. They're 10 feet tall and they got to be buried in the ground. So you got to dig out a big hole. And down here, it's all red clay and it's all big mess. And plus you got to have a big enough vehicle to get these things in there because they've got the arm that's bolted onto it. And if you're doing multiples of those a day, that's a problem. So we went and we found a provider through Alibaba that does these broken down sign components. So they get installed with a post or with a stake in the ground, and then it's got a PVC arm or a post that goes on top and an arm. And then they're easy to store because you just keep all the components separate, and they're easy to transport. They're very light. You don't have to paint them. They're easy to clean, and then you can replace the components. So that worked out really well. But so there's the operational side, right, which we quickly kind of started figuring out how to make that work. But the actual business side of it, we use that as a bit of a loss leader. Like it's not like a big money maker. I wouldn't recommend it for a lot of businesses, but it is an on-ramp into the ecosystem of services that we do that we found to be very helpful. So it works for our business where people come in because they need signs, and then we already have a photographer. We don't need a photographer. But then every time they go in and they have to go through our order system, they have to look at all of our services, all of our prices, and how easy it is to order online. And then we've had a fair amount of people that have made the transition either in a time of need where their photographer wasn't available, or they've just reconsidered and started working with us. So or have become customers in another service. So one of the benefits of Carissa coming on our team is us being able to do MLS data entry. So that allows us to capture some information about the house, which offers a new service. We do complimentary measurements with every house. And that was a really big win for us to kind of separate ourselves from our competitors locally. And then we made a really clean measurement report that translates directly to how the MLS input goes in our area. So it's in order, and it captures other information like number of fireplaces, above and below ground, rooms, so it's all these questions that get asked in the MLS, and they're in the exact order. And then it takes all the measurements of all the rooms, puts them in the exact order that'll be asked in the MLS, and people love it. And that's enough of a reason for people to stay with us, just because of that one free feature. So It's that inside knowledge that I didn't have at all. Like that's a lot of Moses's domain knowledge that is allowed us to grow quickly because we can create valuable things for our realtor customers.
I'm the inside man.
Yeah, it's always nice to have someone who like knows. I guess Moses, you had a broker background. You understood like the needs of the agents outside of just the real estate photography, which allowed your company to start creating more services that could benefit the whole transaction life cycle from listing to selling the actual property. Was it like, how do you measure the ROI of each one of these services? Like you said it's a loss leader.
Well, that's not quite true. Like we don't, it's not truly a loss leader, and then we don't lose money on it, but I think we make like $4 on one probably after everything. But yeah, that's actually a bit challenging. So we have multiple of these sorts of like on-ramps in. So we know the company is growing strongly, but it's actually been a bit difficult to track the exact path in other than just asking people. So Carissa does that as we have new clients coming in. Simi does too a little bit. So we do have some data to that end, but it's not quite as granular as either of us would like.
Makes sense. Especially when you're not like a giant data warehouse, analytics company. So, you only have so much
wishes
data. Well, from an intuitive standpoint, what has been like outside of, building out your business, the core services, what are like one or two things that your company, North 7th, has done that has, you would say, like, at least from an intuition or experience standpoint, produce the best return on investment?
I'll hit one, and then I think Matty probably has several. I think the key for our quick growth has been actually coming at it from a realtor's perspective in terms of speaking their language and really looking at servicing their needs. So even as I've gotten to know other photographers around the country at different conferences and things like that, a lot of times the realtors are kind of like that idiot that I work for, who bugs me at 11 p.m. And realtors are 100% that sometimes. But if you can get past that for a minute to see them as another struggling entrepreneur, typically, who has their own needs and their own challenges, it kind of informs the messaging that you would send their way. In terms of like one of the key messages that we found would resonate with a realtor is that we save them time. Like we save them a significant amount of time by bundling services. It has little to do with the fact that we have some kick-ass photos and great editing and great everything. And it has a lot to do with helping this other entrepreneur function and grow their business better. So that resonates in a way that has driven adoption. And of course, we have lots of awesome like features and products that they like as well. But I think a core of it is more communication than it is any particular one of the products.
Understood. Appreciate that response.
So my background is in media. So in one sense, Moses and I had a bit of a step up than probably the average Joes that are starting a real estate photography or media business. My degree's in film. I've been directing commercials. I lived in New York City and I produced and directed commercials, worked in TV and film. So when we connected, we immediately saw that there's an opportunity here where there's a business model that, and for me, it was like a short-term opportunity till COVID kind of recycled at first. And as we've grown it, we've realized there's all kinds of potential opportunities. That was my first introduction to anything in real estate. So I've had the benefit of Moses being my real estate mentor, so to speak, of, learning the trade through him. But I don't think that while I've had that unique advantage, that other real estate photographers can benefit just from talking to their their customers.
Yeah.
Like one of the best things to do is to go and take them out for lunch, which we do. We learn, and it's not necessarily the real estate insider stuff. Sometimes it is, but it's just understanding the problems and like being an open ear and being a problem solver. That's how you build that trust. And particularly early on. So when we started, it was just me and Moses. And Moses at that point was still part of his brokerage. So I was doing this full time, and I was doing all the photo shoots, all the videos, and I was even doing all the editing up front too. And Moses is great at business management and quickly pushed me towards, we need to systematize the things that you do, and pushed me to train other photographers to offload some of the responsibility so we could grow. And at first that was like a really daunting idea, that like I think a lot of real estate photographers have gone through in the conversations I've had with them, where they feel like they're the only ones that can do what they do. I uniquely create something of value to my customers. And while you obviously do bring your personality, a lot of it is, stuff that can be formulaic. It's, particularly real estate photography is, you can bring unique stuff to it, but you can also teach the unique things that you do. And so that nudge and that pushing from Moses definitely led us into a path of like, let's find ways to do quick training and to systematize the elements of our business. And I would say outside of the actual domain knowledge that Moses brings, like the systems are a big part of how we have been able to grow and grow quickly, and then make a very repeatable product that people trust. And we focus a lot on customer success as well, and making sure that our customers are heard, and which can be really hard. Sometimes the things that are important to them are definitely not important to us sometimes, but because it's important to them, it is important to us. And so spending the time to understand the problems, and not just it's an obvious no or it's an obvious yes. Sometimes it's just understanding the problems is one of the biggest things that have led us through those really tough situations that could go bad and you lose a customer. Those are usually the times where we actually earn a customer for life. When you have those problems, your willingness to resolve them and to show them dignity and respect, and to get stuff done, and to continue to provide quality. If that means you've got to eat crow, you've got to go fix a problem, reshoot, whatever, those are the opportunities that all of a sudden you could have lost them forever. Even if it's something that they're completely wrong about.
That's when it's the hardest.
Yeah. But that $50 difference, wouldn't you pay $50 to have a new customer, or to pay $50 to have a customer for life? Of course. So it just changes the perspective a little bit. So I feel like the systems, but we've also systematized that to some level too. We write down our policies around specific things that we see, just like you see FAQs on a website, we do those things too internally. What are the frequently asked questions from our photographers? How long should I wait outside of a house when a realtor doesn't show up, before I should leave? What should I do next? And we have basically decision trees for these things. So,
or how early should they be? 6 minutes.
Right. So systems have been a big part of our scaling story, and ongoing. We have part employee base, and then we have a part contractor base, and it's been very helpful with our employees to be able to show our contractors how we do things, and you can just send them a link, and you can get there very fast.
Yeah.
But we didn't do anything that anyone else couldn't do. It just took the determination to do it. And we use Notion, which is a pretty popular tool. It's really great for creating kind of like micro sites, and it's drag and drop, and you just edit stuff, and we document and take pictures and add in videos, and we have different categories of different things, the different products we offer, from photography and video and aerial, and then signs and other things too. We just dump start by just doing a brain dump of all of the things that are related to that concept, and then you can refine it. And it's the easiest way to start getting people on board.
Yeah, interesting. And how and it's only been 2 years, you said, since you officially started North 7th?
Yeah, November 7th was our 2-year anniversary.
Wow. And how fast have you been able to grow this company, and where are you now in terms of, if you're open to sharing like numbers, both with the number of projects or revenue that you do, as well as how big is your team to support that type of growth?
Sure. So we were starting in November of 2020, and we were kind of working out a lot of kinks before we started scaling in any real way until about the spring. So beginning to push and scale, we went from doing, like, I don't know, what were you doing at the beginning of 2021? Like 5 or 6 shoots a month, something like that?
In the very beginning, yeah, like it wasn't crazy, and then we started to get to the point where we're getting 2 or 3 a week.
Yeah.
In the early parts of 2021.
So then we started looking down the road to, like, the brokerage being sold and me being able to focus on sales, which is when Matty started focusing in on training in particular. So that when I could hit the ground and start meeting with brokerages, we quickly scaled up to the middle of that summer, probably doing like 60 to 70 shoots a month, and then quickly hired someone to begin doing those so that Matty and I could continue developing the business. So that 3 to 4 months was probably the biggest curve up for us across that summer. And then we started systematizing and expanding into these different products to stabilize and continue growing that particular business. So at this point, we're doing up or down from 100 shoots a month. And that's just shoots. So that's not, there's also other verticals. So we now have the entire editing platform and then the TC platform that are both growing around the core of those 300 to 400 media clients. So we established that 10% core, and now we're capitalizing into other verticals around it as well.
Very cool. And why keep reaching for like new opportunities as opposed to doubling down on like 1 or 2 more like focused efforts like around media? Because like, is it distracting? Do you feel like things are going to be done kind of like Tesla stock drop because people thought that Elon's new focus was Twitter for many reasons? That's why I believe Tesla stock like dipped, is like Elon's all over the map. Tesla's not going to succeed if he's not present. How do you feel about that as business owners and entrepreneurs in each facet of the business? Because each additional thing that you're offering or service is sometimes almost like a new business, right? So you guys essentially own like 4 or 5 businesses, obviously under the guise of one bigger one. How do you decide what gets your attention?
I think that's kind of been a growth curve for both of us. There are definitely times when we launched products before I think we probably should have, looking back at them. Where I do think there's a component of it that both Matty and I are acquired very entrepreneurially, where we do get bored and we want to create something new. And if we aren't careful, we don't focus long enough to get it the traction that it needs for it to be really what it can be. So I think we're both getting better at even being a backstop for each other, of asking questions of whether it's time to move on from something or pushing harder to get it to a great level of traction. So recently we've been talking a lot more about getting particular verticals to a level they can be handed off to where we know they will keep growing under the next person's leadership, rather than just that they will operate, which I think is a pretty key distinction. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think may have spread ourselves too thin and have been consolidating some elements, but we're also not, in the sense that we're consolidating by hiring and expanding leadership in those verticals so that the company as a whole can continue growing. And that's probably the most obvious in the editing business, as we're working on funding and staffing up that business to be able to expand with our focus.
Makes sense. And that's Pixel Mob?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Pixel Mob. I feel like there's there's a lot of like successful companies that make a transition towards more of a software or platform over time, because they're like, okay, that's the next move, or potentially even education and business. That's kind of like the three different trends I've seen with the more successful entrepreneurs. They either start a e-course or software or platform where people are learning and networking, or they're starting a software of some sorts, or they're trying to create an entire platform altogether. Why did you decide to go towards the route that Pixel Mob is going down, as opposed to some of the other options? What are you solving for exactly?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we created Pixel Mob is because of a problem that we have, which is like we get asked to do a rush order, and it's 12 noon and they need it delivered by the end of the day. We want to immediately say, yeah, we can do that, because we can upcharge, $50-$80 to do that. Then we got to go hit Facebook pages and try to find an editor who's awake, who can do it right now, and then just cross your fingers that it'll be okay, that it'll actually be good.
Throw a dart at the 150 comments that you got when you asked for an editor.
Right. Yeah, and RIP your inbox, because it's just going to blow up. So we immediately knew this was a problem. I think all real estate photographers probably have experienced that at some level. But also, this is one of the things that we did immediately before we even started training other photographers, is we outsourced editors, and that was our editing to editors. And that was probably the pivotal move for us to become an actual business. Looking back, I don't think I really realized that at first. And I was sitting there thinking, man, we're giving away so much of our earning potential. But then immediately we could do, 5 times as many shoots just with one person. I'm spending much time.
Without killing ourselves or not having evenings or otherwise driving ourselves into the ground, which is not great for a business in the long term.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So I think we realized that there's the obvious problems that we were feeling as real estate photographers. We also saw this as a thing that was missing in the general economy of the real estate photography industry. Right now, you have great solutions for the online forms and scheduling and the delivery of your finished files. But then the middle part, where you're doing the fulfillment and then you're actually doing all of your editing and your workflow for post-production, that's all the wild, wild west.
So, kind of a big hole there.
Yeah. And the resources are minimal, and you're kind of chasing down random vendors on the other side of the world in different time zones that are literally opposite. So messaging is very hard. So we knew that we could create a solution. This is, just the world we live in. We are already using things like Fiverr and Upwork, and these are things that people understand. Even general marketplace ideas of Amazon, we can apply these same ideas to real estate photography, but the big difference is from Fiverr or Upwork is that it's built for real estate photography, the day in, day out, that you're doing 3 to 5 to 10 different edits a day, or maybe way more. So you need to be able to find one editor or a group of editors, build your editing team that can do different kinds of specialty editing, and then have essentially that workflow. So you're not going to Fiverr to find somebody that you're going to be ordering order after order after order through Fiverr. Pixelmob is built for a real estate photographer in mind. Every order is based off of a project. So you put in 123 Main Street, and then everything underneath that are order items that tie directly to that order. So you start with your HDR, you're going to have 30 HDR images, and then you want to do 3 virtual staging, and you're going to do 3 object removal, and you're going to do 4 day to dusks. And you can keep that all in one place. And then when you're done, you have this great list for your accounting of what you spent for every order that's tied directly to a listing. So we built it with all of that, the actual use case of a real estate photographer in mind. We're not trying to be this universal place to find any kind of gig editor or whatever. So right now it's all based off of photography, real estate photography. We're going to be expanding into other services like real estate video editing, and then other specialty cool stuff like floor plan conversions and renderings and specialty graphics like plot lines for aerials and other things in the upcoming months. All of the specialty kind of things that hopefully can expand a real estate photographer's quiver of services that they can provide to their realtors.
Yeah. So in terms of having a platform like this versus a large established company, like you look at companies such as Box Brownie or Fixer or Photo Up, I know I'm missing a few more. Why would someone just not just go with like a big company that already offers all those things at scale? What is like the edge that Pixelmob will provide that is better than me just going to like a big company like Photo Up and saying, hey, can you just handle all my edits?
Well, let's back that up and connect it to your last question as well. You asked why Pixelmob next. And both Matty and I, when we were starting the initial company, we were starting the media company because we wanted to design marketplace software. We wanted to design solutions for deploying vendors in new ways that benefited both the vendor and the person buying the product. Great marketplaces do that. So as we were starting the media company, a lot of the reasons why we were expanding and testing different services and connecting them was around the idea of, can we build marketplaces that serve consumers better than large agencies? So the core of your question is like, why don't we want to be a large agency that does all this stuff and tries to provide one singular level of service across and most of those companies outsource to hundreds of different editors, right? So one of the common challenges is a difference in the quality that comes back. One of the beautiful things about a marketplace is that we don't necessarily have to regulate that. We have to provide a platform that promotes truth, essentially, where you can log into it and you can see reviews from other photographers. You can log into it and see before and afters of that particular editor's images. And not to knock any other agencies can develop great systems and have very consistent results, right? But Brendan, you might want one style of editing and I might want a different one. You might have a normal turnaround time of 48 hours and you want maybe a slightly higher caliber of edit and you want to pay more for it than maybe I do in Little South Carolina, where our average order is like in the mid 200s, right? So they're very different depending on where you are. And I love marketplace dynamics that nobody has to solve that, because all the entrepreneurs around the world will solve that for every person's use case. As soon as there's a need, as long as there's a platform where they can communicate the need and the service and connect them, it gets solved. It's one of the awesome things about humanity.
Yeah, that's a good perspective on it. And I love that, because it's that concept of the market will figure itself out as long as you provide, the channels for it to do so, the platform for it to do so. When it comes down to like being a business, how do you as a business plan to make money? Because I've seen a lot of people on Upwork, subvert, the Upwork terms of service and figure out a way to, put on a postcard, a selfie of like, call me, I'll work for you directly or something like that. And even as an agency, I deal with that. Like I have agents that I serve that will solicit my photographers that I've trained for like a full-time job, and it's already happened. And I work in a state which is, at will, and there's no non-competes, California. And how do you plan to thrive long term? Like, what's the vision for Pixel Mom? How are you guys going to be, a company that one makes money, because you're not going to be in business long term if you don't make money after a few years.
Yeah, we're not a charity, or actually, we'll take donations from photographers around the country. Yeah, just.
So I guess the two questions is how do you plan on making money, and what's a bigger vision? Because I feel like, just based off what you guys have done so far in 2 years, it's not going to stop at just a real estate photo editing solution.
It will not. Let me hit one piece of that, and I think Matty will have some great things to contribute in terms of the roadmap of where Pixel Mob's going to go. I think the simplest answer to your question is just that people will 100% do that. Like, editors will try to flip somebody off the platform, and that is kind of what we would expect in a sense. It is, of course, against terms of service, but it's going to happen at some level, and that's okay. We're not building a platform that's designed to be a prison for people. We're building a platform that actually has value to different people. It has value to the photographers in a bunch of different ways that Matty already went into. And it actually has value to the editors too. And one really simple one is, like, we were able to launch with Stripe Beta to provide payment processing into Vietnam, the Philippines, and India, which has never really happened before. So that's streamlining into, like, Brendan, you can run a credit card and pay somebody in India now. You've probably only done PayPal links before. You may have never known why, but because Stripe didn't integrate into those countries. That's value to those editors that would cause them to not want to flip somebody off that platform. Now, in terms of longer term things, Matty, you want to hit some of the ideas in terms of what we're building, why photographers wouldn't want to leave?
Yeah. So like Moses said, the biggest moat that we can create around our business is creating value for both parties, to the point where it would be stupid to leave. So along those lines, we do have a roadmap of features that are not just around marketplace. The marketplace is kind of the starting point, but it's the toolkit and the workflow tools to have an all in-house post-production workflow that just doesn't exist right now. So, one of the things that probably gets on people's nerves is, every time you have a new order, you're going and creating a new folder, and then you're duplicating, maybe you have a folder template, or you have a system, you're more tech advanced and you have a way to, like, just, create a template with all of the different hierarchies of folders that need to go for every order. So we did that pretty early on, but even still, we were manually creating that every single time. So we want to work with the tools that already exist, where people are using for their delivery and their order creation to integrate, and files to flow in and out, orders to be automatically in queue, where once an order is created in your order form, then it's integrated with that system and it's just there and it's waiting for you to edit, to upload your assets. We want to be able to do raw asset management. And so I think this is kind of one of those things where people don't know what to do with all these raw assets. We want to be able to upload them and store them, and then be able to cull them, do the culling all online. You upload them on your computer, or and then be able to go in and jump into the project from your phone and just select the photos to be edited, and then it gets sent off. Being able to do annotations and reviews, and being able to leave notes on specific photos, draw circles around the trash can lid that's open, any of the things that the editing workflow that needs to be built in so you can work with people overseas or local, wherever, and just be able to do that through an online system. But it's for the editors too. So they have their own workflows, and we want them to be able to grow and promote their own businesses as well. So
yeah, definitely.
A really simple one, like we were talking with you about what it would look like to integrate with your delivery platform. Like a really simple reason that a photographer might want to stay with the platform is if we can just seamlessly deliver their edits back through the platform so they can get them to their realtor, right? So all those sorts of things, each piece adds value in such a way that we believe that there'll be resistance on the photographer and the realtor's side from flipping off the platform because the experience that they have is better there than what they're going to create through email.
Yeah. Sounds like you're not just looking to provide like just a marketplace, but like a software that enhances the workflow of both the photographer and their clients, the agents that they serve, as well as the photo editors and the editors that are going to be on the platform. Um, so you're building out software. I know like PhotoUp like built their own custom software. There's companies like Ario and obviously the one I work close with, Tonimo, that also trying to build more workflow automations and systems. Like right now, in our system, you click a button and it creates the raw folders based off each services that are booked, as well as the final deliverables. And you click another button, you click sync, and everything just gets transitioned into a delivery page.
Love that.
I guess, how do you plan on? And then there's so many photography companies that have their existing workflow, as well as editing companies, whether it's something simple like Dropbox and we transfer links, or something more complex like a more dedicated system like PhotoUp wants you to go into their system, like someone were to log into Facebook to be able to, do X, Y, and Z. What's the vision of how your platform is going to work in conjunction with existing platforms?
That was one of the fun things. Like we were at a couple of conferences in the last month with a lot of photographers, and one of the fun things for me was that nobody's currently doing what we're doing. So we're having lots of fascinating conversations with delivery platforms and others. You mentioned PhotoUp. Like we don't have to be competitive with PhotoUp. PhotoUp is actually offered through Pixelmob. Like it's a choice you can make when you go to Pixelmob. So like as a marketplace, as a platform, our only competitor would be somebody else who wants to be a marketplace and a platform. Anyone else can sell their services through the platform or integrate with it, as long as we can figure out how that's mutually beneficial in a way that it hopefully grows both platforms. So like take your service, for instance. So integrating with Tonimo could be beneficial to both parties. It takes nothing from you in terms of offering editing services. It provides a new service to your clients that you didn't have to engineer and build, and then we can push it back to you. So it creates stickiness for your clientele, and it creates a new customer for Pixelmob, and possibly vice versa, depending on how it ends up happening.
Cool.
So we think integrating into the existing ecosystem and supporting the software that already exists is probably our best play.
Very cool. Well, definitely interested in taking that conversation down. Another, a separate conversation. Obviously it'll take time to scope out what that means, especially when it comes
Of
to
course.
code and tech and APIs and things that are above my pay grade. But happy to make those connections. What is, I guess, the current experience so far? Like you have a vision of what it can be and what it should be. Where do we stand now? If I were to go to Pixelmob as a potential real estate photography company, shopping around for a new editor, what can I expect?
Well, if you're listening to this on a podcast, you should 100% go to app.pixelmob.com so you can kind of read along with us. But Matty, do you want to describe the experience?
I can share my screen. Like let's see. Like this will be my first time. Let's pretend it's my first time. I'll share my screen. So app.pixelmob.com.
There's no E in Pixelmob.
Because we're cool.
Then you should be good.
We don't need vowels. Yeah.
Got it. Cool.
That's
It's
Pixel Mob. And
video
Matty, do you
already.
want to kind of walk them through?
Sure. So right there at the top, you see those kind of tiles that move across. Those are all the different services that we provide. So we've got kind of image enhancement as kind of like a category, and then we've got all these specialty editing things. So you can jump right in if you're looking for something specific. We've added some things, and we've tried to standardize some of these terminology, so everyone's using kind of the same language. But it'll filter, but based off of those things. And then you can just jump in. When you look at these tiles, so you're looking at these filters. You can look at kind of turnaround times. You can look at who's available right now. And then these are the basic services. So you can sort them with all of these things, and you'll come to like a short list, hopefully, of just the things that you're looking for.
And
And then
then
it'll just kind of pump out all those results.
and a lot of times people are coming for a particular service. So if you hit the tiles at the top, you can just very quickly sort with like everybody who does clear the room virtual staging or data dusk editing or whatever you want. And it'll just select those particular editors. And then in an experience nobody's ever had before, you can actually kind of compare the editors side by side. So if you click into one of those, Brendan, just pick one that looks cool to you. And you can see the before and after of their work in that space. So you can see what
There's a whole gallery there. Yeah.
It's hard to see. Did you select BPEC?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see what their version of Clear the Room is, and if you want to, you can go over to Photo Up and look at theirs and see which one you like better, who did a better job, who had better verticals.
You can see the clear pricing for for that service. So it's $15 for that service. I'm sure Brendan wants to share his password with everybody.
I can click a button.
So hit I'm a photographer. And I think you're gonna have to throw in
You need to choose a username.
Username, yeah.
And signing up is that simple.
Cool. Awesome. Well, for those who are watching, very beautiful interface and a little bit of lag on the sign up. Not sure why.
Yeah, it's taking its time.
My password was very complex. It's trying to decide.
Apparently.
But no big deal. I'm sure it'll be figured out. So yeah, super excited to see where Pixel Mob goes, and love to continue a conversation on how my company, my agency, real estate photography agencies like Aerial Canvas and ACRE Seattle can utilize and benefit from the platform. And love to actually continue maybe another conversation sometime about, how do I add transaction coordinating service, like TC services to my business? How do I add, does it make sense? Or I'm sure there's like at least a couple dozen agencies that are like, oh, I would want to add, real estate sign services, and I would want to add TC services. I would love to do a deep dive at some point on how they can start, and maybe they can reach out to you to license maybe some sort of like best practices on what you've found to be successful, even if it is a just a way to improve their stickiness, their ecosystem with their clients.
Hey, we'll do one better, and just if they run a Pixel Mob transaction, if they've used Pixel Mob, we'll figure out a coaching call. I'd be glad to do that. It'd be fun. Very
cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Moses, and let's keep the conversation free flowing. I love the entrepreneurial mindset that both you guys have taken in the approach towards all your business ventures. Solving problems, taking care of clients, really trying to create value at the end of the day for the businesses that you want to that you're serving. I think that's the recipe for long-term success. Like, even if you don't figure it out today, you're on your way to figuring it all out.
Awesome. Love it. Thanks.
Awesome. We appreciate you having us, Brendan.
You're welcome. We'll talk soon. Thanks.
See ya.